Hello guys, this is Nitin again, and let's talk about in this session. Let's talk about the different type of users we have got in our SAP system. So in our last session, we have seen that how can we create the transaction SU01 to create a user in SAP. Now we will see that what type of different users we have got in a SAP system. So in last session, we have used a transaction SU01 to create a user, and this is the same screen again. And ID which we have created was ZT_111. So if you click on this speckle icon, which is called display, or if you press F7 on your keyboard, you can get into the display or mode for the user ID. Here we have provided few only the mandatory things which we need to create a user. First of them was the last name. This is a mandatory field to provide while creating a user. Under logon data, we need to provide the initial password. Either you can deactivate the password or provide a new password. So these are the three basic requirements or mandatory requirements without which you cannot create an ID. First of them is the user ID, second of them is the last name, and third of them is the password. Okay, using those three IDs, those three parameters, we can create an ID. Now let's talk about the different type of users we can create in the system. So if you are on the logon tab and you see on the user type field, you can see the 5 different type of users. Okay, so we have dialog, we have system, communication, reference, and the service users. So let's go one by one to these. So when we talk about the dialog users, what we are saying here is that it's an individual user in SAP. This user can be a support user, user can be a technical user, or it can be a normal end user who is doing the daily business functions. So a dialog user is the most common type of the users in the SAP system. Mostly 90% of the time, if you have got, for example, 100,000 users in the system, you would have 90% of them would be dialog users. So if you have got 1,000 users, you probably would have 900 users which would be of type dialog. Okay, so what are these dialog users are meant for? These are the users, primary users, who can use the SAP logon pad to get into the system and interact with the system and execute the transactions to make the business work. Okay, so some few parameters for these parameters in terms of what can these be done for. You can use these IDs are being checked for the password, their initial passwords, their expired passwords, like after every 30 days or 60 days a user has to change his password or not. So this dialog type of users are subject to that condition. Okay, uh, users can change their own passwords, administrator can change their passwords, and the users can do the multiple logons. So you can log on to the SAP system and create 5 or maximum 5 different sessions. So you can have multiple windows open for the same user. Okay, and it's a most common one. The second one is a system user. So system user is basically meant for background job processing. For example, there are some background jobs which are running, and those system users should have the extra wide access to make sure that the jobs process, make sure that, okay, if there are some programs which are being run to look for some kind of authorizations, those are being processed without any issues. So system users are the users which cannot be used to log into the systems. So a dialog user, for example, similar comparatively to dialog user, a dialog user can get into the system, log in using the password, perform the actions. System user would have the user ID and password, but no one can use it to log into the system. This user ID and password will be used in some kind of processing in the backgrounds for the RFC connections and all those things, where a non-human interaction is required. It's a background processing. Okay, and the passwords are never expired for this. So once given, they will be continue using till the system works. Okay. Third type of users are the communication users. So these are users are similar kind of system users in terms of that a user cannot be used to log into the system using the user ID and password. And these communication users' passwords can be changed only via few some background softwares, or which we can say as possibly in the the passwords which are being used in the middle tier for communication between two different type of systems. For example, like SAP system, and there is another one which is the C system or Java system. So the communication between these two systems can be done through the communication data. These users cannot be used for the background processing of the jobs within the system, within the SAP system. Okay, so once again, no multiple sessions can be open, no dialogue can be done, and can be used between the communication of between the two systems, which are of different types. Okay, so this is the communication type of users. Reference users, once again, it clearly says that log on not possible, and the reference user are similar kind of dialog users, but yes, you cannot use this user as to log in into the system. The passwords are not being verified again. You cannot use this ID to log into the system. Roles are being created and assigned to the roles are being assigned to these reference users. Main use of this reference user is basically that for example, like there is a limit of assignment of roles to a user. How can we give some kind of additional access? So there's a section in the roles tab, and once you see the roles tab in there, you would see a reference user. So for example, you have got a role here, and if you maintain a reference user here, the authorizations of both of these roles and the user are being clubbed into the test ID which we have created, ZT underscore triple one. So this is like it's a kind of a workaround there where we can not have more than 312 roles assigned to a user. If we assign the reference user, so in total we would have 312 plus 312 roles, like more than 600 roles can be assigned to the user, and authorizations can be add on. It's kind of like we are just providing more access to the user. It's and sometimes it's generally used where you have got, for example, a big teams coming in. Like for example, you have got a team where you have got 50 plus users, and people are coming in and going out from the team. It's very frequently. So we can create a reference user in there, and there if there is a new team member who is joining the team, instead of copying the roles to the user ID and all those things, we can just come here, assign the reference user to the user profile, and he would have similar access. So in a team where we have got 50 people, they all would have a similar access, rather than maintaining each and every single roles with start dates or end dates and looking for the SODs and all those things. Okay, so this is kind of a standardization between like what the authorizations are being assigned or can be assigned to the users. Okay, going back to the logon tab and looking for the fifth type of users, which are of service type. These service type of users are basically meant for administrative tasks. For example, like if we are using the firefighter application, so you would have users who have got wider access, and these service users, the passwords are being set and are being checked when you log into the system. So generally these service users are capable of interacting with the system after signing in, like using the user ID and password. Okay, so the user IDs can be used in that manner, and the passwords are never expired. So once a password is reset, it can be continued till the system works. So generally this type of user IDs are being used in terms of fighting situations where an emergency has happened. So the operations teams take the required approval. If in case their firefighter application is not working or GRC is not working, they can take the additional approval from the people responsible and use a ID and password to get into the production environment to update some takes, some table contents, or anything like that. Okay, so these are the different type of users which we have got in SAP system generally. So dialog, system, communication, reference, and service. Dialog are the most common IDs being used in the system. After that, the service IDs where the firefighting needs to be happening. So dialog and service users can interact with the user system with passwords, user ID and passwords. Communication user, system user, and service user, dialog user can do the multiple logons. So basically all four IDs can do the multiple logons. In terms of like system user and communication user cannot, and the service user cannot use a password logins, but the background processing can pick their instances and run the jobs backend. Okay, passwords can be updated for dialog and service user. And This is it. I believe that, yeah, this is a go through about what type of different type of users we have in the SAP system, and how can, in what scenarios they are required. Okay, so we'll continue with other different parameters which we see in the SU01 in our further videos, and we'll take it from there. Any questions, you can just put in the comments. Thank you. See ya.